Yo, what is going on? It's the Narrow Talk 23. I'm back with another video. Before we get into the video, YouTube, I need you to hit the like, comment, and subscribe button. Turn on that post notification bell while you at it. Today we got a true crime story. We got the teens who killed their Spanish teacher over a bad grade. Let's get straight into it.
These two teens that you see in the handcuffs
Let's see what they
are
talking
Willard
about,
Miller and Jeremy Goodale. At just 16 years old, the two stalked their Spanish teacher before putting her to death with a baseball bat. Her body was found in an isolated area in a popular park, covered with a tarp, a wheelbarrow, and railroad ties. But what made them commit such an incredibly heinous crime? This is the shocking
Over a
case
bad
of the
grade,
teen
bro.
who killed their Spanish teacher over a bad grade. Everyone who knew Nohema Graber described her as sweet and kind, and always there for her students. Born as Nohema Castillo y Castillo in Exalpa, Mexico, she lived quite a remarkable life. She worked as a flight attendant after high school and then took herself through aviation school to become one of the first women commercial airline pilots in Mexico. By the time she got married to her husband, Paul Graber, she was at the height of her career and doing really well. She and her husband lived in Mexico City for a while before moving to Paul's hometown of Fairfield, Iowa, after their two sons were born in the early 1990s. They had their daughter shortly after moving to Iowa. As their children grew older, Nohema, who is now in her 50s, decided to get a degree in English from Iowa Wesleyan University. She originally intended to get a job as an English teacher, but instead was hired as a Spanish teacher, which was more in demand at the time. Her first job as a teacher was at Ottumwa High School, where she taught until 2012, before moving to Fairfield High School, where she taught for 9 years before her tragic ending. By all accounts, Nohema, or Mrs. Graber, as her students called her, was well liked at school, and many of her students would even send her cards and letters thanking her for being such a great teacher.
Happy Teacher Appreciation Week, Mrs. Graber. Thank you for all that you do in and out of the classroom. We really appreciate how much fun we have in your class and how much Spanish we learn. And we just hope you have a really good day. Gracias.
She was a classy lady. She was a dedicated lady. She cared deeply about the kids as people.
However, as it would turn out, not everyone felt the same way about her.
Are you struggling to lose weight no matter how much you diet or exercise? You eat healthy all day. Salads, chicken.
November 2nd, 2021 started out like any other day for Nohema. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and Nohema had just finished her classes and decided to go for her normal walks at the nearby Chautauqua City Park. It was the last time she would ever be seen alive again. Her family got concerned when she didn't come home that evening, and so the next morning they went and reported her missing. A search was immediately launched, with multiple law enforcement officers searching the park, which was where she was last seen. But they didn't need to search for long because that same afternoon they found her, dead in an isolated area of the park. Her body was concealed under a tarp, a wheelbarrow, and railroad ties, and had an obvious inflicted trauma to the head. Her death was quickly ruled as a homicide, with the authorities immediately starting an investigation to find her killer. Meanwhile, the news of Nohema's murder shook the entire community of Fairfield, with many people completely shocked that such a heinous crime could happen in their small, quiet town. Who could do such a thing? Was there a killer in their midst? The answer would leave them completely horrified.
Disturbing investigation in Fairfield. Police say two students plotted and then carried out the murder of a longtime teacher.
This death has stunned the small community. The loss of 66-year-old Noah Graber.
The family reported her missing yesterday morning, and within a few hours, police learned that they were investigating a murder. A popular park there is now a crime scene.
Yeah, and there is no other way to
like
put
this,
it.
bro.
If this crime happened the way authorities believe it happened, it's a tragedy to the highest degree. Norman Graber, a well-loved teacher at Fairfield High School, killed in a brutal way, with two 16-year-old students, Willard Miller and Jeremy Goodale, believed to be responsible for her death. It's a murder which has all of Jefferson County wondering, why did this happen? Graber was reported missing yesterday, but authorities later on that day found her body in this remote area of Chautauqua Park, which is just down the street from the school she devoted her life to. According to the criminal complaint, Whoever killed Graber tried to hide her body under a tarp, a wheelbarrow, and railroad ties. Investigators believe Graber was killed by an impact or several impacts to her head.
So apparently police had received a tip from one of Nohima's students who reported that two of his classmates, 16-year-olds Jeremy Goodale and Willard Chaden Miller, had been chatting on social media about killing Nohima. While the actual details of the chats have not been released, it has been reported that the boys had totally incriminated themselves by talking about how they stalked Nohima and killed her, and where they had hidden her body and parked her car. Using these incriminating chats, investigators obtained search warrants of the boys' homes, and there they collected several pieces of evidence, including red-stained clothes, hair strands, bath towels, and baseball bats. On top of that, a witness reported seeing both Jeremy and Willard at Chautauqua Park on the afternoon of November 2nd, when Nohima was murdered. When Willard was interviewed by the police, he at first denied that he knew anything about Nohima's murder, but later changed his mind and admitted that he was at the park when Nohima was killed, and that he had even provided the wheelbarrow that was used to conceal her body. He, however, denied being involved in the actual killing, claiming that a roving group of masked kids were the actual killers, and that they had forced him to help them get rid of the body. Investigators, of course, did not believe this story because Nohima's murder seemed to have been premeditated, so what was the reason these boys had to kill her? There wasn't a lot of information out there about Jeremy and Willard's background, but what we do know is that they were both Nohima's students at Fairfield High School. Some of their classmates said they were just normal teens who rarely got in trouble.
It didn't seem like they would be the type to do something like this. They weren't mean kids, they weren't bullies or anything like that.
However, some other students
Don't matter, bro. You never
Willard
know.
would often speak aggressively about Nohima.
Having known Shaden, having him in my math class, he did speak not in a murderous way, but in a very aggressive way for dislike towards Miss Graber.
During his interrogation, Willard reportedly told detectives that he was frustrated about the way Nohima taught Spanish, and was angry that the low grade she gave him was lowering his overall GPA. On the afternoon that Nohima was murdered, investigators said that Willard went to see Nohima at Fairfield High School to discuss his poor grades. Several witnesses said that they overheard the two arguing about the grades before Willard stormed off. At around 4 p.m., Nohima was seen leaving the school and driving her van to Chautauqua Park for her daily walks. But less than an hour later, witnesses saw her van leaving the park with two males in the front seats. The van was left at the end of a rural road, where another witness later picked up Willard and Jeremy as they walked to the town on the road. Investigators believe that Willard and Jeremy had followed Nohima into the park, where they ambushed her, dragged her into the woods, and beat her to death with a baseball bat. They then drove away with her car so that she wouldn't be found, and then came back around midnight to conceal the body. A witness reported seeing one of the boys pushing a wheelbarrow around the park at that time. But what makes this case even more disturbing is that these two sickos had actually stalked Nohima for a while before killing her, meaning that they had all the time to change their minds, yet they didn't. And like that's not already bad enough, they went on social media to brag about it. Willard and Jeremy were both charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. But get this, despite all the evidence against them and the fact that there were witnesses who saw them at the crime scene, they both pleaded not guilty to the charges. Their lawyers even tried to get their cases taken to a juvenile court where, if convicted, the teens would have been in jail for less than 2 years. How absurd is that? Luckily, the judge rejected these requests, and both boys were charged as adults and held on a bond of $1 million each.
Surrounded by sheriff's deputies and cuffed at the hands and feet, Jeremy Goodale and Willard Chaden Miller shuffled separately into the courthouse. The hearings were brief and focused on the same issues. Defense lawyers argued their clients have no prior criminal record, have no place to go, and would suffer detrimental effects remaining locked up. Prosecutors argued their murder was planned and brutal. They actually called for bond to be raised to $2 million. Georgia Haggard was in the same Spanish class as Miller, with Nohima Graber as their teacher.
I didn't feel the same at school and even at home. Like, I just wouldn't feel safe, and Fairfield didn't feel the same either.
Now, Willard's defense team has been trying to save some key pieces of evidence, including the Snapchat messages, the red-stained clothes, and the comments that Willard made to investigators about being frustrated with his teacher, thrown out of the trial.
Why?
They argue that the search warrants used to acquire the evidence were obtained illegally and that law enforcement officers had unlawfully questioned Willard without a lawyer or guardian present. Willard's mom even testified in court that she didn't know her son was a suspect when the police had her sign a consent form.
You signed that form. Were you told that Jaden was a suspect in any crime?
No.
Before you signed that form, were you told that there had even been a homicide?
No.
Before Curology, I used to wake up, wash my face, walk out the door, and it was Pimple City. It was
However, the prosecution argues that there was enough evidence from the Snapchat messages to request the
They
search
got everything
warrants,
they need.
and that the witness reports and the evidence they followed put Willard, Jeremy, and Nohema in the same place at the time of her murder. Willard's trial has been set to begin on March 20th, 2023, while Jeremy's will begin in May 2023. Now, what's really incredible about this case is that despite what these two deranged monsters did to Nohema, her children say that they have forgiven them. Christian, Nohema's eldest son, wrote this on Facebook.
I'm sorry I can't respond to all of the messages, but I'll just say what I've been told. My mother passed away. As I understand it, it was pre-attempted murder by 2 students. I forgive them, and I feel sorry that they had that anger in their hearts. There's no point in being angry at them. We should hope that they can find peace in their lives. My mother was an angel of a woman and was one of the kindest souls. She gave me the gift of the Spanish language and helped many of her students over the years. She was well loved in the community and all around the world. Thanks to everyone who reached out. I may ask for some help with things in the following days, but in the end, everything will be okay.
Nohema's daughter Marie also posted on Facebook saying almost the exact
You
same
gotta
thing
say
as her
shit
brother.
like that. Shit
We've
don't make
lost an
sense,
absolute angel in our family. It's all thanks to her for instilling a love of travel and languages that my brothers and I have continued to experience the world throughout our lives. We had the wonderful fortune of growing up in a home filled with such an abundance of warmth and love. I will miss her loud laugh and dancing with her to any music that was playing. She had so much joy in her eyes and such a deep sense of faith. To the 2 teenagers that so cruelly took her life, it is clear that they need more love and light in their hearts. But I agree with my oldest brother, Christian. All we can do is forgive. I am filled with so much gratitude to have had such a strong and beautiful woman as my mother. And from the outpouring of messages, it's incredibly touching to know that her presence impacted so many. What a blessing she is. We know that her soul lives on in heaven.
What do you think? Would you forgive someone that took away somebody you love? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos.
See, stuff like that, like, I get you're supposed to forgive, but I will never forget. Like, you can forgive somebody, but don't forget what they did. Like, that's your mom. That's their mom. Like, how can you forgive somebody that killed your mom, especially over something like that? A bad grade? Come on, bro. Like, come on. I hope them folks, I hope they get prosecuted to the full extent. Because, come on. You did all this over a grade? Come on, it got to be more than that, bro. It can't be just over no grade, bro. Like, that's just sad, bro. Come on, bro. But you too be rocking with the channel. Leave me a like, comment, and subscribe. Catch me on the next one.